So we had a lot of stuff going on over the weekend, man, and over the last week. And one of the things I just want to just briefly cover, not going to go into detail about this, but there was a year-long operation you guys may have heard of on the west side, especially if you live out there, Operation Brick James. So they were targeting street gangs on the west side, specifically the 10th, 11th, and 25th districts. They recovered 17 firearms and 3 kilos of fentanyl-laced heroin, estimated at nearly $500,000. And this was called Operation Brick James. So I'm not going to put up the pics of the drugs and the guns here. Sometimes that gets the video a strike, but they said there were 11 arrests. They're really like hawking the West Side, man. They've been doing this for a long time, surveying these gangs, watching them. So if you're selling dope out west, just know it can happen at any time, man. Because they watch for like years, and then all of a sudden it just all comes crashing down. Everything seems to be going smooth, but they're just gathering evidence the whole time. We had a 40-year-old woman. She was fatally shot during an argument on Tuesday in Grand Crossing. Okay, she was arguing with a male suspect. If anybody has any information about this, you can email me. I don't know what the situation was or not, but she was apparently innocent. She was struck in the chest and taken to the UFC Medical Center where she was pronounced dead. So her sister said that she leaves behind 3 kids. No arrests were made. We also had a woman who shot and killed a man over in Morgan Park. And this woman was about the same age as Lakeisha. She was 41. She became involved in a verbal altercation with this guy at about 12:45 a.m. He approached her with a knife, and the woman pulled out a weapon and shot the man multiple times. He was shot 4 times in the torso, and he was later pronounced dead. Now, there was another woman, and they say charges have now been filed against her. She was 35. Her name was Catherine. This was back in August. Charges have just been filed. They say she's charged with 1 felony count of first-degree murder and 1 count of unlawful use of a weapon by a felon for her alleged involvement in the deadly shooting. According to police, she allegedly had killed a 32-year-old man in West Pullman, and this was about 1:40 a.m., and this was on August 6th. So police did not provide details about what led to the shooting or identify the victim involved, but they say she was taken into custody on last Thursday, by members of CPD and the Great Lakes Fugitives Task Force. So she's already had her court appearance, and I don't know what that argument was about. A lot of these are just like personal stuff. This is not like gang-related stuff. Okay, then there was a 13-year-old boy who was hospitalized after he was shot in the leg in Grand Boulevard. So according to police, the shooting happened just before 8:30 p.m. over on 50th Place, 400 block of East 50th Place. Police said the teen was standing near a street in the area when he was hit in the leg by gunfire. He was taken to the hospital in fair condition. There's been 295 shooting victims under the age of 18 since the start of the year. So anybody with info on the shooting can leave a tip at cpdtip.com, and tips can be left anonymously. And again, guys, there's a $15,000 reward for any crime now that you help CPD solve in the city of Chicago. But anyways, this is the one that really was making a lot of news. So a 12-year-old boy was killed in a shooting on the south side on Sunday evening. Police said the shooting happened in Inglewood, over on South Low near West Marquette Road at about 6:30 p.m. What this was about, I don't know. Anyways, officers responded to a report of shots fired and found the child who had suffered a gunshot wound in the middle of a block. He was taken to Comer Children's Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Video of the scene shows investigators searching for shell casings. CPD and community leaders said that they need the public's help in solving the case. There's a $15,000 reward. And so police said that you can leave the tip anonymously, guys, and don't worry about your identity getting out there. Police say nobody's in custody, and whoever killed a 12-year-old boy, man, needs to be locked up. Now, it may have been another kid that age. I mean, it may have been. But that even more so. Like, if it was somebody that age, they'd be doing a lot of random stuff, and a lot of times hitting a lot of innocent people. Lil Yummy is a perfect prime example of that famous case that I covered on my old channel, man. But there's still stuff like that goes on in Chicago. I don't know how old the killer was in this case, but yeah, anybody that's got info, a 12-year-old, that's out of bounds. He needs to, whoever the killer is, needs to be locked up, man. So please contact them. We had another shootout at a Walgreens in a pretty high-end neighborhood over in the 1600 block of North Wells. Apparently this was personal. Okay, so there was a 26-year-old guy inside the business. The 26-year-old man pulled out a gun, and there was another guy there who would open fire. I don't know how old the other guy was, but the other man, described in his late 20s, was shot in the chest, head, and abdomen. He went to the hospital, but he was in critical condition. We're investigating, so that, I think that's the Walgreens over by 1600 block of North Wells. Pretty upscale area, man, but just personal stuff. A lot of this weekend stuff with just like non-gang related personal stuff. But then the big thing that I wanted to talk about this weekend, guys, is the relations between the Palestinians and the Arabs and the Jews here in Chicago, man, because we got a big population of both of those. The Arabs, especially the Palestinians, there's a big community of them on the south side, like not in the city limits, but just outside the city in a suburb called Bridgeview. There's an area out there called Little Palestine. There's an estimated population of about 200,000 Palestinians there when you account for the first and second generation as well as the immigrants. So they're down there really like on the southwest side over there. The Jews are primarily in an area that you guys have seen in a lot of my videos, which is like the northwest side. West Rogers Park, there's a ton of them. Okay, when you go down Devon, which is where like Little India is at, all the Indian and Pakistani restaurants, if you keep on going west from that, you're going to run into like a huge Jewish area. And all those side streets off of Devon, when you get to like Kedzie, and then you keep going west and a little bit north, and you're into the suburb of Skokie, and that's a huge Jewish community out there. There's a Holocaust museum over there, and they've been there for decades. Before that, though, like literally right in the same area, there's a big Arab population and a lot of Assyrians too. Assyrians are not Arabs. That's a different ethnic group. They speak Aramaic, not Arabic, but the majority of them are like refugees from Iraq. So they also speak Arabic. They just speak both of those languages. They're primarily Christian, though, Orthodox and Catholic Christian, not they're not Muslim. And actually, as a matter of fact, most of the, I would say about 50% of the Arabs here, like including the Palestinians, are also Christian. It's like disproportionately represented by Christian Arabs here compared with the Middle East. In the Middle East, it's I think only about 10% are Christian versus 90% Muslim. So it's a different ratio over here. Why they came over in bigger numbers than the Muslims, I don't know. But you guys may have heard about the incident in Illinois. This was something that even Biden was talking about, where a guy named Joseph Zuba, he was an older guy who was a landlord who had stabbed him like 26 times, a 6-year-old Palestinian boy. There was a lot of fake online rumors that the guy was Jewish. That's an Eastern European name, and I don't think it's a Jewish name, to be honest with you. What he is, I can't confirm. I don't know the guy. But Zuba's not a Jewish name. And Joseph that can be either one, but yeah, I don't think he was Jewish. It wasn't any like orchestrated effort by the Jewish community. The Jewish community had nothing to do with it. Like, it was just this guy. So rest in peace to that kid. But yeah, a lot of fake online rumors were starting after that it was a Jewish attack and stuff like that. It wasn't that. We also had a girl from the Chicago area, from the suburb of Evanston, which is, again, what I was just talking about. That's like literally right next to Skokie. And I wouldn't say there's a big Jewish community there, but it's pretty sizable. Not as big as the one in Skokie, but an Israeli girl and her mom were just released by Hamas. They had been taken captive during the initial attack 3 weeks ago. So I'm putting up some pictures of her here. Thankfully, they were released safely, but there's been a lot of increased tension, as you would expect, from the Jews and the Arabs, like over the past 3 weeks. And it's always been tense. It was tense like back in the early 2000s, like if you guys remember after 9/11, and then like when the Intifada broke out, like up into about 2005. These things usually get heated at like city council meetings and university forums and stuff like that. No real big violence. It hasn't like broken out into real big violence, I would say, but this is really like just to the Jews and the Arabs in the Chicago area. Over here, this is a country where people come because they usually have like a common vision for what they want for their family. Saying like this, coming to the United States, there's certain character traits, okay, that, cause a person to leave their homeland and come over here. That everybody here, except for Native Americans and Black people, share that experience. Or, voluntarily coming over here for a particular reason. Usually that's, to take care of our own families. So here, I would say that a lot of you guys probably have more in common than you think. I'm talking about the Jews and the Arabs, like, as far as what you want for your families, what you want for your own lives, the reasons you came over. There's really a lot more common ground than you guys realize. And I think a lot of times it's helpful not to come at this in a combative way, which is what I've seen a lot, with a lot of the protests and stuff. It's just shouting across the street, and it's not productive. Saying like the best thing that what I've found and a lot of the tension is surrounding the universities is to have meetings where everybody can sit down and discuss these things together, like in a moderated forum, and keyword moderated, like somebody being the moderator. When it's just left for kind of like a free for all, that's when it usually devolves into chaos. But this thing can lead to productive conversations, and there's a lot of communities, especially in the area where the Jews live, in the Rogers Park area, that are refugees from wars, who are living in that community side by side with former enemies. This is something I was going to make a separate video on how Rogers Park became so diverse, but I'll just cover it briefly in this video. So, I mean, you've got people who are refugees from conflicts, like, for example, the Sudanese and the Arabs from Sudan. Okay, you got black Sudanese and Arab Sudanese living side by side. That one I would not really say is a two-sided conflict. That's more of like the black Christian Sudanese are just the straight up victims of that. But I knew personally, like we had guys at Sullivan High School whose dads were taken into the militias over there. I'm talking about Sudanese guys who were coming over here like basically with nothing, and they were living side by side with the Arabs. Going to the same school with the Arabs from that same conflict. Same thing with the Bosnians and the Serbs. If you guys, some of you guys may be too young to remember this, but if you came of age during the 90s, you remember the war in the Balkans in which the U.S. got involved, and we were actually bombing Serbia when Slobodan Milosevic was in power over there. And Bosnians and Serbs, it's a big conflict, a lot of bad blood, between those two sides. They live side by side in Rogers Park, in that area. Same thing. I've seen like no violence between them. They were going to the same school. They were both deep at Madver High School. All the high schools, Amundsen, the high schools on the northwest side. Anybody that went there in probably still even to this day, big Bosnian population over there. But a lot of bad blood between those two sides. But here in the U.S., put all that aside. You know what I'm saying? There was a guy I had met in college. This was like early 2000s. I was taking a class on Islam. And I was taking the class because, I told the teacher, she asked why we were taking the class. I told her because I was trying to learn more about my own country's history because, we had been occupied by this Muslim empire for 500 years. And, I wanted to learn more about the history of that and Islamic law and all that kind of stuff. And when I said that, there was a guy like in the front of the class who he was like itching in his seat to talk. And after class, he came up to me and started talking to me. He was a Turkish guy. He was from Turkey, like an exchange student. And his name was Fatih. If he sees this video, which I doubt, but he'll definitely know who I am. So he came up to me and started talking to me, and, we started arguing about politics, because our two countries have a conflict. It was civil, but we found out that we had a lot more in common, despite the fact that our two countries are, beefing. We had a lot more in common than we thought, and, we started hanging out together. We became friends. He was Muslim, I was Christian. So we would argue about politics a lot. And I mean, we were both pretty fair-minded, though. Like, I saw a lot of things from actually... I was like, the Turks are actually right about this stuff. And he was saying the same thing about, he could see our perspective on a lot of things too. So he eventually decided he was going to start a club. And it was like a Turkish club, okay, at the school, a Turkish cultural club. But he wasn't just going to make it just a club about that. He wanted to reach out to all the other countries that Turkey had problems with and try to, come to an understanding. And Turkey's got problems with a lot of countries because they had a big empire. They had colonized a lot of different countries. So the Armenians, all the Europeans in the Balkans, the Albanians, the Serbs, the Greeks, everybody from there, we all have beef with the Turks. So he wanted to like improve Turkey's relationships with these other ethnic groups. So he would invite all of us to this. We would all go out to, kick it at restaurants and stuff together. And I'll say this, it changed a lot of people's minds, man. And it made a lot of people see things differently when you can actually get to know these people on a personal level. It's easy to dehumanize and to see somebody as an enemy when you don't know them personally. I find that's usually the case with people that are just on some savage stuff as far as we just need to kill all of them. They're all animals. They all need to die. Like people that do that usually don't have any personal friends that are members of that group. And so it's very easy to fall into that way of thinking, if you don't. So those kind of personal interactions to get to know these people as friends is very important, man. It's very important. And he ended up doing a good thing with that club. I remember I was like the first person who wasn't Turkish to actually become a member of the club because I was personal friends with him. And I walked in, it's a room full of Turks. I'm this Greek dude walking in there, man. Like all the heads just turned to look at me. It was awkward to say the least, but it was worth it because I was the first, and there were other guys, Albanian guys, that started hanging out with us. And yeah, it's one little thing that for you guys who are at the university who are in college right now can do. Don't focus on doing big stuff to change the world because that stuff is like a lot of that is pie in the sky thinking. The best thing to do is just to reach out to the people that are around you. And so for the Israelis and the Palestinians, my suggestion is just to get to know each other. Get to know each other as friends because y'all are the next generation coming up. They're eventually going to be in the positions of power someday, some of you. And it's important to have that type of mutual understanding before that happens so stuff doesn't just continue on the same path, man. Because, I mean, this has been going on for, see, a lot of people say it's been going on since the Nakba in 48. I take it way before that. Way before that. I mean, really, at least back to the Balfour Declaration, which is something I'll probably talk about in that video on Palestine. So like 1800s, okay, and then actually, I mean, you could really take this all the way back to like ancient times. I mean, really, you can take it back to ancient times, man. Ever since the Jews left Israel uh, after the destruction of the Second Temple, and then when that area became predominantly Arab, and then when they started to migrate back, there's been problems. So yeah, I mean, even since the days of the Prophet Muhammad, there's been problems. It's sad to see some of these government meetings in Chicago getting kind of rowdy because of this, but the younger generation, man, y'all got to be the ones to make a change. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. You guys let me know what you think down in the comment section, man. There's your boy Chicago News. I'm out.